This is I'm Don Preventure, Chair of the Merrimack Village District Board of Commissioners. Welcome to the April 20th, 2020 meeting of the board. And I'm going to call this meeting to order at 5:01 p.m. If we can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Great. Thanks, everybody. Just want to read a message that due to the COVID-19 in the state of emergency, this public participation will be offered by phone, and that's going to be during the questions from the public session of the agenda near the end of this meeting. You may also watch this meeting via video, which can be accessed at www.mvdwater.org. As a courtesy, Merrimack TV is also recording and live streaming this meeting on their website, which is merrimacktv.com. And if you go to the online video live streaming, you could pull that up. It's also on their Facebook page, Merrimack TV on Facebook. And again, you can participate by calling 1-646-876-9923 and entering the meeting ID number 930-7798-4842. And that information is on the agenda for this meeting, which is on the MVD website. So that being said, I think we can go ahead and proceed with the roll call of the board members so they can indicate where they're calling from and how they're participating. And I can start. I'm Don Preventure. I'm participating from my home through this Zoom video application. Wolf?
Wolfram von Schön, participating by Zoom from my house in Merrimack.
And then our third commissioner is Ken Ayers.
Ken Ayers, that's MVD.
And that's 3 of the commissioners out of the 5 that we have right now. So we have a quorum. We've also got Amanda participating by our secretary taking notes. And you're at your home office, I believe. Your home. And we have Pete and Keith from Underwood. And you guys are participating from, looks like Keith, you're in your office.
Yep.
And Pete, where are you from?
I'm at home.
You're at home. All right, great. So the first item on the agenda is the financial review, analysis of revenues and expenditures. And if Michelle is available, we can have her sit down and answer any questions and discuss that with us. How you doing, Michelle?
Hello.
Good.
Being through March, we are 75% through the fiscal year, and we'll use that as a reference point as to how our numbers, our actual numbers, have come in against budget. Looking at the revenues on the P&L budget versus actual, we're coming in at 85% budget. Last year, it was at 71%, and factoring in for the increase from the rate increase, we still were approximately 54,000 above that projection, items that increased with the rate increase. But to note, the unbilled accrual that we do each month, which is just a projection for how we think the billings are gonna come in for the next few months, and the portion that would belong to, March and back. We deducted $30,000, which was taking 10% from, residential and industrial, and 15% from mercantile usage sales, just to allow for the stay-at-home order possible impact. Looking at the pumpage numbers we have and the actual billing numbers that we do have, we aren't yet seeing a significant change there. We have had some usage as far as domestic, been going down the last few years, so we didn't see any jump in the billing that we've done yet. We will be streamlining the May billing process. I did look at the April billing. That didn't indicate anything of note either, but for the May 12th billing, we're going to streamline the checklist process we normally go through, just to get to those numbers a little sooner, so that we can see if are some indicators that we are going to see a revenue downturn of any significance. So we are keeping an eye on that number as we move forward. Does anyone have any questions on the revenue numbers, anything specific? One other note, system development. We did have some significant SDC charges come in this last month. We had almost 93,000 come in for the 315 DW Highway Neighbor Works 45 unit complex. And then we also had several thousand come in under the Lamontagne projects, Orchid Drive, Harvest, for those areas so far. So we did see those come in March. So that was totaling over 100,000 that came in just during the month of March for SDC. So are there any questions on any other specific revenue items?
Just one I have on the industrial water sales line 40300. Looks like we're only at about 57.5% of budget there. Is that something that is does that have like a billing that's going to be due later to catch up, or is that just we're falling a little short on that?
When we built the budget, we were not aware that there were some misclassifications. So some things have been moved up into mercantile that were previously categorized as industrial. So that's where we've seen the difference there.
Okay.
And it's a smaller overall budget number, so the change there is a more significant percentage, but it didn't represent that significant of dollars. It just did bump up into the mercantile line.
Right. And I don't know if I keep asking this every meeting or not, but the backflow, service charge backflow, that's only at 40% right now. Is that something that also might have more inspections coming up?
Yes, from here until the end of the year are some significant months. So we should end up being on target for that.
Great. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Continue on.
All right. As far as the expenses, the payroll overall is coming in at 67.8% against budget. And other items we have visited before as far as timing issues. There were just a couple of expense lines that I just wanted to make a note regarding. Account 70100, the R&M communications is nearing 100%, and that's a timing issue. There are particular items that were most of the budget that have been purchased for that. Also, account 70525, R&M office equipment. There is a $3,000 item that needs to be reclassed. I just need to talk with the parties involved with the purchase to figure out what the correct budget is for the item. So that will be moved out of there. Engineering has bumped up to 87% of budget, but once again, that's just a timing issue as it's gotten much busier later on. as of late the last few months.
Michelle?
Yes.
Sorry, it's kind of small. 60850 property taxes is at 50%. Is this something we don't prorate, or is that just because of the timing of when we pay the taxes, or?
We just, for that item, it is paid twice a year that we are billed, and that's when it is posted. Yep, so we'll see that other piece come in. It usually comes in May.
Okay.
So that's for the wells that are in Hollis? Yes. Okay, that's for the wells that are in Hollis. And accounts 81950 on page 3, professional fees. Overall, we're only at 44.7% regarding professional fees, legal for PFOA. That is at 86.2%, and just once again, that's an element of timing of when we've had matters to address. And the capital budget, we have purchased the 2 vehicles that we had planned on, so those are at 94%, but we are going to come in under budget for those. And then the principal and payments for our debt are all just timing. As of present, we just record them as they happen. So we just have at this point, we'll have 2 more payments that'll be coming in, and we're going to come in, and those will be right on track, except for interest that we've mentioned before for 90300. There was a refunding of some interest from the bond bank. So we're going to come in a little bit less as far as what we had budgeted for interest there. Does anyone have any particular line items they had questions on, or like additional info regarding?
I do have a comment. I either aged since last month or this is printed smaller. I'm having a hard time reading this time.
Oh, and I do apologize. I'm sorry. I meant to start off apologizing for that.
And I just compared. It does seem just a tiny bit smaller, but just enough that I'm having a hard time. I guess I'm getting up there. But if you could somehow print this a little bit bigger, like next time, I'd appreciate it.
Yep, most definitely will. And the comparison month by month was supposed to come out on legal, and I didn't realize that it hadn't because I had printed straight from home to here. And my printout at home was just a little bit bigger, so I could read it. But when I see it, when I came and got the packet here, I'm like, oh, so that will be adjusted. I will.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Do this month, sure, no problem. Any
So
other?
just page 2 on the total expenses. It looks like we're at 60%, right? Is that what that number is? 60? Yeah. Which is less than 75, so we're doing well.
Yeah, as far as overall, our expenses are $94,000 down from the prior year, and at 60%. A lot of that can be timing, but we have looked at some of the bigger expense items, and it's looking like we're going to have no problem coming in under our expense budget. And we move forward, find out more about where our revenues will be coming in. As we do last quarter, we start really tracking very carefully any larger expenditures just to make sure they are things that we want to make in this fiscal year.
Okay, great.
So yeah, overall we're coming in at 964,000 net income, and last year we were at 340,000. So part of that is our rate increase, and then part of that is our expenses being down from where they were last year. I'm still waiting to hear from the Department of Revenue Administration regarding the revenue account 40600 system development, as far as how they're wanting us to treat that. Currently, I'm just leaving it as revenue and treating it as the other revenues, but even with that removed, we'd still be at 79% compared to the 75% position against how long we are along in the year. And the other factor too is, even though we don't know how these next few months will play out, April, May, and June obviously are usually higher usage months. So even being anywhere above the 75% is a good position to be at.
Right. All right. Anybody else have any questions, or I'm good with all of this.
I'm good.
Sounds good. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, great. So now we can move on to agenda item number 1, and that is discussion of capital projects with Underwood Engineers. So there's about 5 different projects going on that we want to talk about. So you have the floor.
Peter, go ahead. You can start.
Okay, so I'll just start out with the first project. So the well 4-5 project. The vessels were delivered and set inside the building last Thursday. So that was a big hurdle to get over and make sure that we got those. They were about a month later than we originally expected, but they're in, and now the contractor is working on putting the roof on that portion of the building, and also doing siding, insulation and siding around the building, and then there'll be a slew of subcontractors in there from now on. Doing all the components on the inside of the building. So that's where we stand on that. The well 4 replacement, that new well has been drilled. Soil samples have been taken on that, and then once the sieves come back in on that, Emery and Garrett will size the screens for the well, and then those will get put in, and we'll be ready to go on that. So within a month, I believe we should be all set on that one.
Good. You said there was a time lapse camera.
Yeah.
Did that work?
Not as well as we thought it was going to be. We should have cut the duration of pictures down, but we do have videos of it going in that we can provide you and stuff.
Just thought it might be interesting to put a photo up on our Facebook page or something at some point.
We definitely have, I have still photos and a video, so I can give you either or both,
The time lapse of the vessel install isn't that bad. It's a 14-hour time lapse in about 15 seconds. So the vessels are probably about 1 second. But it is interesting, and you can slow it down, and you do see it. So it's worth putting on the website.
It's almost like they magically appear all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I have a couple pictures too, and I think Dave took some videos too.
I have video too. I got a lot of video of them being delivered and then them going upright and into the building.
Good.
And you guys were saying when I was there that you were planning to put it on the website and on the Facebook page. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really appreciate that idea.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on wells 4 and 5? I know there's been a little bit of a change in the schedule, and I just thought maybe you could talk to that real quick about just updating on what some of the items were that caused the change in the schedule and what the new schedule is now, if that's all right.
Yeah, so the one of the items is the VFDs, variable frequency drives. Those are the drives that run the well pumps. We were told by Penta that those were initially an 8-week delivery, and now they're being told that they might be out to 12 weeks due to COVID-19. So we're trying to get a better idea on that. We should have a better idea probably, in a week or so. I'll touch base again with the contractor and find out what that is, and then I can email Ron and give him an update on that. So that was.
Are they coming from overseas? Are those Siemens drives?
I'm not sure where they're coming from.
Because the freight capacities from Europe to the States are severely diminished due to the lack of air travel and civilian air travel. So all that freight capacity is gone, and you see a lot of cost increases. We're seeing huge cost increases for air travel and for even for ocean travel. So we might need to prepare for some cost overruns on the freight. I don't know if we have got notice from our suppliers that this might cost us any additional upcharges.
We have not heard anything about cost increase. We just the only thing that we've heard at the last meeting was possible little bit delay in the delivery of the VFDs. So
the end date now is I guess on looking at the schedule, to turn the system over to the owner is somewhere around the end of August, like 25th, 26th or so. Is that the time that we can expect water to be into the system at that point, or is that still?
Yeah, it could. That if that's when they turn it over, that's sort of substantial completion. They're still shooting to try to have that before that, but I think that would that's in the ballpark, I guess. Yeah.
Right.
Then we'll have a better idea of on the once we find out when those VFDs will be coming in, and then if the VFDs will be getting delayed, we initially talked about possibly running a temporary jumper hose from the discharge side of the plant to the inlet side of the plant, so we can actually start backwashing the GAC and wetting it down and all that kind of stuff, and getting that prepared to go online. We're hoping that we could, if the VFDs get delayed, we can go with an alternative plan to keep the GAC startup on schedule.
Because you really need those VFDs to activate the pumps, basically, right?
Yeah, you can't run the well pumps without the VFDs. Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll find out what the VFD schedule is, and then if they are going to be delayed, then we'll look at an alternative plan for that.
Okay. The question is anybody monitoring? Would it help us to expedite the freight on these VFDs possibly to make up for the delay in the delivery on the manufacturing side, if that's where the delay is caused? Because we might incur more cost by delaying other contractors or, stretching out the project versus the freight increase if we expedite the freight and pay air freight instead of ocean freight and whatnot.
Okay, just pay a premium for freight to get it here earlier?
It might be cheaper than delaying the project because you have all the contractors standing by, maybe remobilizing twice, which is extra cost and all of that. So it might be better off paying an upcharge to get the drives in on time. But we have to understand the nature of the delay too.
Yeah.
Peter, that'd be a good question to add to your list, or to find out what the true schedule is. Ask Penta if there are options to make it faster.
Yeah. Okay.
Even if there is a premium that you guys can consider. So yeah, that's good.
So I guess looking back, we're probably happy that we expedited the Masons, because the original contract had like a 3-month shutdown. Is that correct? In the middle of the winter?
Yeah, it was going to be at least a 3-month shutdown, because we probably would have wanted them or allowed them to put the foundation walls of the building, but we would probably have told them not to pour the slabs, because then it would create confined spaces that water, snow and melt could get into, and then you get ice in there, they could freeze, and then you can get into cracks and that type of thing. So we would have probably allowed them to put the frost walls in, leave it as a gravel surface, so any water that would get in there would get out. So then if we did not go with the winter shutdown, we probably would have stopped at frost walls and not have done anything. But here they were allowed to pour the slabs and put the masonry up and get the southern half of the building roofed. So
right.
Yeah.
But by doing that, I guess the end of August completion would probably be even pushed out further if we wouldn't.
Oh, most definitely, yeah. Yeah.
We are taking steps where we can, and we did take steps early on to try and get this thing expedited. And so that's good. Hopefully it'll all keep going at this point.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions on wells 4 or 5? Do you have anything more to tell us about that, or are you pretty much done with that?
Yeah, we don't have anything more on that, yeah.
Okay. You wanna move on to, what's next, well, 7 and 8?
Yeah, well, 7 and 8. So we have completed the design. The project has been advertised in the newspapers and at the plan agencies. And so we're pretty much out to bid on that one. And contractors are free to call up and request for plans and specifications. So
Good.
we're right on schedule with that. We are looking to do that by mid-April. And we are right on schedule with that. The one thing that did come up that we talked about at prior meetings was possibly standardizing around certain equipment. And one of the pieces of equipment we are thinking about standardizing around was the GAC vessels. When we sent up our 100% design to DES for review, they felt that piece of equipment was very expensive and a large percentage of the project, and they felt that it did not or should not be a sole source item. So they felt that the media could be, because the media is the stuff that is really treating your water, but the vessel itself, is not. So they had us open that up to any manufacturer, but we still have that same carbon, specified. So it'd be, like a Calgon or a TIG deciding to, they put in their vessel and use a Volqua carbon. So.
Because you've evaluated that carbon and selected that because that's specifically the carbon we want to use, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
okay.
So they went with that. So we do have a deduct bid item in there. So we were initially trying to do two deductive bid items. One would be with an Evoqua treatment system, and then the first deduct was if you went with another manufacturer, what would be the deduct off of that? That's the one they told us we could not do. The second deduct that we had in there was only going with one vessel instead of two. So we do have that in there for deduct, just to take one of the vessels out. We would be having the single vessel with the pipe rack in there. So if you do want to add the second vessel in at a later date, the pipe rack and all the piping's all set up, you would just have to pop the roof back off and drop the vessel in.
Right. And that would only be allowed if the MCLs were not lowered to the 12 PFOA that they're currently proposed at, correct?
Correct. But in the comment letter coming back from the state on the 100% design, they said that they highly recommend that you put both vessels in there because it does give you that lead lag, capability. So as you're getting down near, breakthrough coming out of your first vessel, you're catching it in your second one if you miss it. You missed the timing on that a little bit. So they highly recommend it, but
I think that allows us to use more of the capacity in the primary vessel without having to worry about what do you do if it breaks through the primary vessel and you don't have a lag vessel, then you got to hurry up and get the carbon changed.
Right. And you could get in that situation if you only had one vessel, and all of a sudden, depending on, and you might end up. So if you're looking at operational, all of a sudden your vessel is getting close to breaking through, in the June time frame, but you're saying, okay, it could probably go another month or 2 months, but then you go, well, I don't want to be in a situation in the middle of the summer where I have my highest demand,
right,
and so then you go, okay, let's change this out before it's really ready. And then you're kind of losing some capacity that you're already getting rid of because you're trying to change it out quicker because you don't have that lag that can catch you. So, yeah, so I think operational wise, O&M cost wise, I think you would probably save money, and that would be one of the scenarios that would save you money by having that lag vessel.
Okay.
Yeah. Peter, question: if we were to combine SDS at least advises us to investigate, right? If we were to use media from a different manufacturer than the vessel, what does this do to our warranty on both the vessel and on the media?
The specifications call out that, what media to use, so they know that as they're bidding it. So if a Calgon comes in there, they know that we want to use the Evoqua carbon, so they know they have to do that, and they know they have to give us the warranty for that. So I don't believe they have too much ground to stand on, and for not giving us the warranty that we asked for.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, we had discussed at one point to enter possibly a long-term or more long-term contracts for the media. And didn't that buy us some extended warranty on the vessel? That was something we talked about last fall.
I don't remember that. Do you remember that, Keith?
I don't remember it impacting, or that discussion having an impact on what the warranties could be or would be. But I don't also think that whether you have a different vessel would prohibit you from having a long-term contract either, Wolf. I think you could still enter into some sort of arrangement regardless of the vessels. And I think that was kind of the state's point. And frankly, we chatted about it a little bit here, and I think obviously it would be nice to be standardized, but it's probably not one of the, we didn't see anything yet that says, you know what, that one's worth a push or a push back. Wasn't too critical, I think.
I would just figure that whoever is able to sell us more than one system worth of vessels is going to be able to give us a better price than anybody else. But
the downside to that is when you tell them they're the only one, then their price
right. I mean, you still want to get bids anyway, obviously, but you wouldn't want to do that either way. But,
and you may still end up with Evoqua here. You may still get it because they're already in town.
Yeah. And I wasn't sure because some of the vessel designs, Peter, you and I talked about that here when the vessels came in last week. Some of the bases are different, right? I wasn't sure if the media manufacturers are maybe depending on their own vessel design for the performance of the media, and then giving or not giving the same warranty for the media.
Yeah, I'm not sure where you're going, because I think they are required by spec how we have it, to provide the Evoqua media. So I'm not sure I'm not sure where you're coming from on where the warranty would be.
Well, my understanding is that based on the RSST tests and the quotes that we get from the media manufacturers, we get a certain warranty for the performance of the media.
Right.
And if they fail that performance, they would replace it either prorated or completely, I don't know.
Right.
Before its estimated expiration date, right?
Okay.
And if now we're using material from Evoqua in a vessel that comes from Calgon, is Evoqua giving us those same warranties, or are they throwing their hands in the air and saying, no, we can only give you a certain amount of, limited warranty of some sort? Are they going to play the blame game in blaming the vessel if something fails to achieve as expected? It's just something, usually when you combine manufacturers like that in projects, you're exposing yourself to these discussions, and I want to make sure we have an understanding of that.
We can check on that, and I would say that the bids for 4 and 5 really were set up the same way. Calgon did have an option to bid on this using the Evoqua carbon. So, but maybe it is worth just a double check. So, and they didn't object to it. I mean, they knew the terms and the conditions. So maybe it's just worth a double check. But based on the bids at 4 or 5, it's really going back to the exact same bid structure that we had there. But maybe it's worth just a double check because we do have a little time to ask.
I've just seen suppliers, bidders, massaging the terms of the bid based on one choice or another to, to motivate you to go with them all together, right, across the board with different items of scope. And I just want to make sure we're not getting caught off guard that, there's some reduction in warranty or whatnot, or whatever it might be that may bite us later on if we go that route. I want to understand it ahead of time.
I had maybe just 2 procedural questions or comments on this bid too. because of the COVID and these types of things, we are doing things differently in bidding. And just to be upfront with it, the pre-bid meeting will be online like this. So contractors are invited to be part of the pre-bids just as before, but it'll be an online meeting. Right now, the bid is subject to being delivered like it was for 4 and 5 to the office and opened up publicly and read aloud. But we probably will be changing that following whatever guidance Merrimack wants us to follow in terms of, keeping things right or separate. So just mentioning it, but over the next week or two, we will be issuing an addendum with more guidance on how the bids will be received. And we'll work with your staff just to make sure it's in compliance with whatever protocols you have in place. So I just wanted to mention that because it may not be the traditional bid opening, and we've been doing them throughout the state now, and they've been working either online or various ways, but in this time we just got to do things a little different. And then the last thing on that procedural stuff too, when we do issue that addendum, the bid is due right now on May 18th, and I think that was intended to try to be on a date that you had a commissioners meeting. I would like to suggest that if it's okay, we probably would want to move that out. I think we were trying to do it on a commissioners meeting, so we'd open the bids in the afternoon. You would have the benefit of the information at the meeting. But Mondays are not a good day to open bids because contractors are usually putting stuff together last minute and dealing with subs, and so Saturday and Sundays are usually a tough time for them to do that. So we don't usually do things on Mondays. Do you see objections to us changing it to a Wednesday or a Thursday of that week, just pushing it out a few days? I'm feeling like everything's online anyway. When the bids are open, we can just distribute the bid information to whoever wants it. But I just wanted to throw that out there because I think it would be in your best interest probably just to move it out to like a Wednesday or Thursday.
You have a problem? No. We're okay with it.
Okay. And then Jill and Ron, we'll work with you guys on how to set the bid opening up, whether we do something online or how we make that happen. But one of us might show up and we could do, but keep the contractors out or something. We'll have to figure it out, but we'll work with you over the next week on how to do that right.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Okay, any other questions on wells 7 or 8 from anyone? If no, then we could probably move on to wells 2 and 3 design progress.
Yep. So it's actually really just well 2 because we're kind of holding off on well 3. So just quickly on that. So we signed a contract last month for the final design phase. So we contacted our surveyor and geotechnical subconsultants. So the surveyors were actually out there 2 weeks ago doing the field work. So that's all done, and they're looking to finalize up those, our base plans for that. The borings were also drilled out there, so all the field work is done on that, and then they are compiling the report for that. So those things moved along very quickly, which was nice. Both of our sub-consultants on that side were available to start that immediately. So we're going ahead with that. And then the next item is the RSSCT for that project. So we have sub-consulted with EPS on that one to do that testing again. We're testing 3 different carbons for that. We're testing the Volqua carbon that we're using on the 7 and 8 and the 4-5 plant. So we're doing that one. We're doing the Cabot Nord lignite, and we're doing the Calgon F400 plus, that's their double acid rinsed one. We're trying to look at the ones that, we're trying to hit a lot of different targets. So it's how well they do with treatment of PFAS, but also their, how much arsenic they have in the backwash water and that type of thing. So we're looking at a lot of different parameters on that. But those are the 3 that we are planning on testing. They are mailing the coolers up to us. I just talked to Billy, who's coordinating that. They were supposed to mail them this week. He's going to be talking to them. He called them this afternoon and did not get a call back. So we should be getting a call back tomorrow, finding out when those coolers will be delivered to our office. And at that point, Billy will be contacting, Ron and Jill to get down there and actually take the water samples from well 2 and then get those shipped out to start to do the testing. So that should be moving along nicely on timing wise for that one. And we do have a little bit based on the knowledge that we gained on doing the RSSCTs for 4 and 5 and 7 and 8. We have what we think is a better protocol of when we're doing sampling for the different PFAS chemicals, and also doing the backwash testing for the leaching out of the arsenic and stuff at the beginning. So, and also doing pH testing to make sure we can see if there are any pH spikes that we have seen with other test results.
Yeah.
So
are you planning on holding some of those maybe intermediate PFAS samples and not testing all of them immediately? Like we did last one?
So we are going to do like in 2-month periods, 4, 6, 8, 10, and then we would be having some hold samples. Then we go back and say, okay, so now we got something in, month 10, let's, we got the results of month 8, let's try month 9, that type of thing. So what we have laid out, we will have 3 other, sample points that we could go back to and retest again to fill in some data.
Right. Fill in that breakthrough curve, basically, right?
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
And then we'll be looking at all the different, PFAS chemicals, the Merrimack 10.
And just a summary for anybody that's watching that's not aware is we got to make sure that we don't backwash the water with certain carbon that might impart arsenic, because we aren't allowed to discharge the backwash water into the sewer. So we have to discharge that into infiltration basins, which are basically very close to the wellhead or in the wellhead protection area, so that we got to make sure that doesn't go in the ground at certain concentrations. And you had mentioned initially, we're really only looking at well 2 right now. The public may or may not know that well 3, we've identified that there is some elevated chlorides, and that has kind of given us a little bit of a concern about spending the investment on proceeding with treatment of iron and manganese on well 3, which we would need to treat iron and manganese first on well 3 before we could remove the PFAS at well 3. So that's a pretty big number. I think the iron and manganese treatment, I guess, if I had to guess in today's dollars, it was estimated at $4.6 million back then, and now it's probably at $5 to $6 million. That we're trying to find an alternative to well 3, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So, there's some other options that we may be able to get additional sources of water elsewhere to replace that the yield that well 3 is providing us right now. So that's why we're just looking at well 2. But correct me if I'm wrong, but the design at well 2 is going to be designed such that we can expand building at well 2 if we find some additional sources in that region that hopefully do not require iron and manganese treatment and don't have elevated chlorides, so that we could pump those new sources into the building expansion at well 2 for some additional PFAS treatment there. That's kind of just a summary of why we're only looking at well 2 right now, and we're not focusing as much on well 3 right now. So that's pretty much what you agree to. I don't know if you have anything more to add to that. I was just kind of updating our customers.
The one thing I'd say is that infiltration lagoon for the backwash of the GAC, it actually is outside of the protective radius of the well.
Okay.
So we located it just so it's outside of that area.
Good.
Yep.
Okay, good. Anybody else have any questions on well 2 design progress? If not, then we could move on to Turkey Hill Booster. Is that the next one you want to cover?
Yeah, I can just touch on that one real quick, and maybe Ron has something to add. But just checking in with our guys, there is activity out there now, and they're getting ready to cut in some valves. I think they was hoping to get those in a couple of weeks ago, but there was some challenges with getting the water shut off, and I think they've sorted that out with the district, and looks like we'll be cutting those valves in next week. And then what the schedule and the plan is to do a lot of the site work, get the foundation in for the booster station, get the retaining wall in, and then they're probably going to move out for a bit while they wait for the delivery of the station and the generator, and then come back and finish it up. I'm not sure I have latest on the schedule. Maybe Ron does, but that one is moving, and there is activity now, and that's generally how it's playing out. Was there anything else on that, Ron, that is worth updating?
No, that's pretty much what you were saying. I mean, we were hoping to get it started a couple weeks ago, and we couldn't not get the water main to shut down. We actually have a bad valve, so we're going to utilize 2 other valves, and actually we're bringing a Hutchison tank online. We're going to be able to isolate the system out and shut the booster off and feed everybody with the 2 tanks to get this work done.
Parker Hill tank?
Yes, I'm sorry. We're going to use Hutchison and Parker. We're bringing Parker online. I apologize.
Okay. That's all because of a bad valve.
Yeah.
Way to find out.
It's a very deep valve, so we had gotten some prices on insertion valves, and it would have there was probably a $30,000 increase just having to have that valve, insertion valve, put in. So,
Yikes.
Yeah, this will avoid that cost.
What was it, just stuck? You couldn't turn or something, or?
It just doesn't work. Everything appeared to turn it. Everything seems the motions are there. There's some tension on it so it feels like it's working, but it just doesn't shut anything down. So I just don't know what's going on with the valve. 2 other valves. It's a 3-way intersection. The other 2 valves do work, but you're separating the north and the south part of town. So we need to bring that other tank online to actually service the northern part. So.
Okay. So the schedule that was in our packet looks like it was towards the end of November for completion of that. The pump station.
Yeah, as far as I know, nothing's changed on that, Don.
Yeah. Again, that really has nothing to do with treatment of PFAS. That's just delivering water. So
That's just showing you still got other things going on in the district besides PFAS.
we've got a pump station there now that we're getting rid of and replacing with a new pump station. So it's not really affecting anybody's water quality. Basically, it's just more of the way it gets to people's houses. Okay, anybody else have any questions or anything else to present on that? If not, then can move on to the last item for Underwood, which I believe is service request number 50 for the system-wide evaluations.
Yeah, and this was one that we had presented to you. It was either at the last meeting or the meeting prior, but there was one dollar figure that we hadn't got from our subconsultant. I think I told you it was going to be between 15 and 20 when it was done for that particular task. So we did put that back in. We did get that information and put it back in. So this is for 3 parts. There's 3 components to ESR number 50. The first one is the SCADA evaluation and the radio assessment that's affiliated or associated with sort of looking at your entire network and your entire system system-wide as we've been proceeding with these designs, finding some things needed to be sort of overhauled and looked at. So this work is to assess that and then put in what improvements would need to be done as part of the last treatment plant well number 2. So that's part one of this. The second part is the corrosion control and chemical feed. We talked about that last time too, as a reminder, but that was just to optimize corrosion control systems and help in the final sizing and deliveries of the bulk chemicals. So that's part of this. I think the last time a corrosion control look had been done was a long time ago, probably even before I think Underwood was involved. So it's certainly something should be done periodically, and it seems to be make sense to do that now. And then the third part, and just what you were talking about, Dawn, and the delay of well number 3 treatment because of some of the water quality concerns that we've had. The third part of this one is to work with your hydrogeologist, GZA, and Jamie to come up with cost-effective alternatives and to sort of do a double check on water production and water consumption so that we know how much we need. And as they look for alternate sources, we can start putting capital costs together to help make some decisions on the most cost-effective way to either use well 3 or replace well 3. So it's sort of a supplement or a tech memo that will be built off the master plan work that's been done in the past. It's not a rework on the master plan, but it's just a supplemental piece to be added to it. So the total for that, all 3 of those tasks are $56,000. I think you had seen all of them before, except for the SCADA piece, which I think we've now plugged in at 15. Sorry, it's 15.9 was what that one was.
Right.
I do have a question on the SCADA portion of this proposal. We talked in a meeting maybe 3 months ago about the concern that we're using radio to transmit SCADA data, right? Which is digital data, really, right? And that radio may or may not still be state-of-the-art technology. Then there was a comment made as part of that meeting that it might be a state requirement to remain with radio transmission protocols because it's part of a larger emergency response system that is reporting up to the state. I just wanted to make sure that we have a good understanding that we're investing in the right technology. I would hate to invest into upgraded radios when really, the better path to go might be nowadays to put an Ethernet cable in the ground, or I don't know, fiber optic cable or whatever it might be. But who's taking point on inquiring about that part?
Well, we'll take point on asking that question again, just to make sure that everybody understands why and what we're doing. I'm not sure I'm familiar with state requirements to not use or to have to use radios, but because I've seen some other ways it's done. I think radios do tend to be the lower cost and reliable. But I'll put a note here that as one of the first kickoff meetings, we'll pose that question to make sure that gets addressed, so you know what the options are if they exist.
Right. Thank you.
While we're on that note, Amanda, can you make that like an action item so we can follow up on that look into the radio issue?
Yes, I was responding and forgot I was muted. Yes, I can.
Yeah, okay, thanks. We're trying to keep track of action items so we can remember to follow up on them.
I always try to do that too. But we can all use each other's help in that for sure. Good. And Wolf, I did change. There was one thing you commented on last time about the meetings. We had a limit on the meetings, but I took the limit out. It just says we're going to attend the meetings.
That's all. Appreciate it.
The one question I had on task number 3, which is the master plan update and trying to develop the normalized cost alternatives. If I'm assuming you could probably, I don't know if you have already, but I'd like to kind of encompass everything we're looking at. I know Jamie did some rough cost estimates for artificial recharge at wells 4 and 5. If we can use some of those numbers, I think what we're trying to do is basically get a cost per gallon, or cost per 100 cubic feet of water, and find out which is the most cost-effective option to give us the amount of water we need to replace what we're not going to get out of well 3 if we decide, as we have so far, not to pursue well 3 for treatment. So I'd like to make sure if you can add that artificial recharge in and maybe look at Mitchell Woods. I did see a water quality report that was done originally for Mitchell Woods, and it was all non-detect for all PFAS compounds. So that would be a nice source if it stays clean like that and it doesn't need treatment. Again, we just don't know what the yield, if it's obviously it's Mitchell Woods by itself won't replace well 3, but we might have to use a combination of these things to work to our advantage. And obviously when Jamie's looking at developing, if there are other well sources in the Natticook Brook area that we can pump into the treatment plant at well 2, then maybe you can work up some numbers on what that extra cost would be to bring a new well into to the pump station at well 2 and expand the building at well 2 and put treatment on well 2. So when this is all, said and done, we'll be able to look at what our options are and find out what the most cost-effective alternatives are. And it's probably going to be more than one possibly that we might want to pursue to replace the yield that we're potentially losing at well 3. I think that's the whole goal of all of this, basically, right?
Yeah, and that's entirely what the intent is here. We weren't just going to develop normalized cost curves for one option on well 3, because you really have nothing to base it against to make an informed decision. The original water supply option study and master plan that we did it that way with the intent that as we were looking at alternative sources, we were looking at the most cost-effective ones first. So we see it as an update of that. So if there are 2 or 3 options that are cost avoidance to well 3, i.e. artificial recharge or Mitchell Woods or something else, that's what we're going to have as comparison. So the intent is when we talk about the alternatives to identify the most cost-effective approach is the fact that we know there's going to be several options and they will be presented that way.
All right, good. That's what I was hoping.
Yeah.
All right, so you need us to move on this engineering service request. If there's any other comments or questions from anyone first?
I do have a question, Don.
Yeah.
Keith, we had talked, remember there was a credit, I guess it was a credit on, for wells 4 and 5, it was on the downling, extra downling?
Yeah, and I know you and I had chatted, and I think maybe you had a couple ways in how you wanted to handle that, but what Ron and I had talked about, there was a change order for wells 4 and 5, and just to be straight up on that, I think it had to do with the some dowels and some work that had to be done on the masonry that was above what was specifically identified on the drawings that were bid. And so I think that change order, I may not have the exact numbers right. It had a cost impact of about $9,000. $6,000 of that was roughly value added, meaning it was just additional materials that would have been on the job anyway. So presumably would have been part of the price. $3,200 of that change order was actually work that had to be redone, had to back up. There was a little additional labor in, I think it had to do with drilling in the dowels. So that added cost. And I think Ron we were trying to figure out a way. Ron didn't feel district should be responsible for that. We said we would help out with it. So I think one of Ron's ideas was we could either drop it off here on the contract value or deduct it off an invoice in the future, however you guys wanted to do it. But did I capture that right, Ron?
You did. Yep.
That's good. I appreciate that.
So you could either, I had sort of agreed to Ron's request to do that. So you could either just decrease the contract value here and we'll still do the same scope, or we could take it off a future invoice. However you want to do it, it doesn't matter to me. It was 30, and the number was $3,200.
I personally would rather see it off of an invoice rather than a contract, just because we can track it easier that way. Showing 56,000 here, I don't know if that's going to be enough. I mean, I think we can track it. 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 I think that makes it what the job amount is, but by showing a credit on an invoice, I think that's, it's just easier to figure out.
So then what you can do is you can authorize well, I don't know how you want to do it, but I presume if you authorize the 56,000, we bill you 56,000. At some point, you'll just subtract 3,200 out of one of the invoices.
That works for you guys, then it's up to you, Jill and Ron.
So we wouldn't just subtract it out. Would that be something that, Underwood could note in there that there's a credit of this amount on there for this reason so that it's written out?
Yep. Yeah, so we could show the bill and then on the bottom show a credit.
That'd be great.
Okay.
All right, any other questions or comments? Not, then we can entertain a motion to approve this engineering service request if so desired.
Ken Aaron moves to have the engineering service request number 50 be moved.
And that's in the amount of $56,000 even?
Correct.
Okay, motion made by Ken.
We need to include the source of the funds, I believe. Are we paying out of this from the operating budget with the engineering budget lines, or are we paying out of this with capital reserves?
I think it's project related, but I think, I guess that is a choice you guys can make.
I think I said the same thing last time, and you said the same thing last time too, didn't you?
At least we say the same thing twice in a row.
Oh, I hope I did. I'm not being called out.
That's a good thing.
But I think we said last time we're going to put the project, so that probably mutes my point. So, but it should be added to the motion.
So that's just out of operating expenses?
The capital expenses out of the warrant articles, yeah.
Okay. All right, to be paid out of the warrant articles 2 and 3 from 2019?
Yes.
So that motion made by Ken. I'll second that because I haven't seconded something for a while, so I'll make a second on that. If anybody else has any questions or anything other than that, we can do a roll call vote. Everybody set with questions? No more questions? Then
No questions.
we'll take a vote. Ken Ayers, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And myself as the second, I vote in favor. And Wolf, your vote?
In favor. I vote in favor.
We all three commissioners vote in favor, so that passes by 3-0-0. So I guess with that we can move on. Was that the end of what you guys had for Underwood?
That's all we had on those, unless you needed us for number 2, but I think we're done with 1.
Yeah, number 2 might go quick, so we want to hang around for a little bit in case we have questions on that, if you guys don't mind.
Because we did provide the change order summary again.
Wasn't in your packet.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so if you have any questions on that.
Okay. That's for wells 2 and 4 and 5, right?
Correct.
Actually, I'm glad you asked. Down at the bottom of this change order summary, change order number 5, line item 3, chem feed pump modification and add mixer. Then the following line, remove well number 4 cleaning, which is a credit, right? So it says that indicates estimated unapproved values. Do you need anything from us for that?
No, that's just waiting to negotiate with the contractor with the final number.
Okay. And I understood that right? Item 4 is that credit because we're actually now creating a new well or building a new well altogether.
Yeah, that item was in there originally because we were the original scope of the job had cleaning of both of the wells. So because we're installing a new well, that's going to be part of the process that that they're, when they install a new well, they're going to have to be pumping that out and cleaning it. So there's really no reason to clean well 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did we say the abandonment and decommissioning of well 4 is not something that's priced out yet?
That should be also in that same price that that Barry Miller gave you. Yeah.
I couldn't remember or not. Okay.
Yep. That's all in there, yeah.
All right. So this item number 2, is that something, was that the email, Ron, that you sent over earlier today to us?
Yes, and I didn't really have a whole lot on it other than if you had any comments, how it was set up, if you'd like to see anything else listed on there.
So these, just looking at, there's like 5 line items on there right now, right? So numbers, the 3rd line and the 5th line, do those correspond with the warrant articles last year for wells, for articles 2 and 3? Is that what the engineering fees correspond to? Wells 2.
So the 3rd, yeah, well 2 final design.
Yeah.
That's actually I thought that was capital reserves.
Yeah, because I'm trying to remember that some of this design we were paying for out of our own funds, correct?
7 and 8 is going to be capital reserves. That's was our skin in the game. I apologize. And what would come out of the grant and the loan for final design.
Okay. Have you seen this, Keith and Pete, at all?
I did not get that over to him.
It might just be good to get a double check from their perspective on it, make sure the numbers kind of match up with what they're thinking, I guess. If you don't mind.
No, not a problem.
Okay. Is there more that we need to put on here? I see all the other ESRs are listed out here, and I assume you're going to try to fill in some of the.
I didn't want to get anything. I didn't want to get too crazy on it. If you had any, a bunch of changes, then I'd have to go back and.
Yeah, are those ESRs still outstanding? Are they still active? 35 to 46. Are they still ongoing?
There's going to be a few that are closed out.
Yeah.
I just kind of went through the list of ESRs that we had to this point. So
okay.
Those will be closed. Some will be on hold. But that should be, I think, everything. Well, without looking at the files, I believe that was all of them.
And then you're just going to add the number 50 that we just approved now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So this list would have to be updated every time we get an invoice from Underwood. So it would be a working document. So that these totals, I think we've get some bills out now. So they're already, these totals, the balance to finish are not accurate on this.
Yeah.
On some of these.
Well, I think it's understandable that there's a certain delay, but as long as we continue to upgrade it, at least we have a gauge what's going on in the project.
Right.
And not just the project, but also the engineering service. What they call engineering service requests for engineering service.
Yes.
Requests.
So I thought you had mentioned, Ron, that you already had some other way of tracking this before putting this table together. So I'm not sure if it's a lot of work for you to have to calculate these numbers every month, or is it already being tracked somewhere else and you're just kind of transferring costs from one software to a spreadsheet or something, or?
No, I did create this. So we track it, not, so there's two different areas. So Jill has files with all the ESRs that we currently have open in these files. And if there's a PO associated with it, we track on the PO for the ESR. So you physically would have to go to the file and open it up. So this is actually extra creating this. And then if it's a capital project, Michelle has it in her system. She's also tracking. So that I can print out.
Yeah.
You know, the wells 7 and 8 and the wells 2, that's all in Michelle's system. Wells 4 and 5 is in actually Michelle's system. It's a lot of the smaller ones that, I mean, I can bring it all into one sheet, or we can, it's almost just easy to do all into one sheet, but.
Yeah, I mean, this is fine. I mean, I think this is what we were asking, what I was asking for, so.
The whole point was that we have talked about the fact that there are certain tasks that our contractors are providing to us, quoting to us, that we don't go out and get bids for, which is okay in that sense. A lot of the work that they're doing cannot easily be just picked up and done by somebody else, right? Because there's a history, there's data points, specifically with Emery and Garrett, but even here with Underwood Engineering. It makes total sense that this work is continuously done by these established contractors. But the concern is a little bit that without monitoring them closely and maybe having an eye on, is everything built to be, a lot of these quotes are time and material quote, not to exceed a certain amount. And if all of them are billed to the last penny, then it's easy for bystanders to maybe ask questions. If these are always billed to the last penny, why are they not fixed price agreements, for example, instead of time and material agreements? So with my project engineering background, I wanted to get a feel, are we always depleting these approvals down to the last penny, or are they still considered time and material contracts and billed as incurred instead of down to the last penny? And the only way to do that is to have them in front of us on a regular basis. And at that point we can talk about that and make decisions. What is the right path forward? Maybe they need to be fixed price agreements in the future instead of time and material orders, but then at least it's transparent that this is what it's going to cost. Otherwise it's easy, to feel that they're, again, time and material and they're supposed to not exceed that amount, okay? But normally time and material indicates that you're not going to max out the total amount approved. So if this is all on one page, I think it's going to be a lot more transparent.
Okay.
And we're open to, if there's anything we need to reconcile, I'll take a look at what Ron sends over and we can do a double check against our books. And I'll just add, where the time and materials is really useful is in the construction phase too, because a lot of that's dictated by the contractor schedules too. But, and then we ever need to show you where we've gone over budget on things and not billed too, we can certainly open the books that way too, if you'd like, because sometimes that does happen.
I do not want you to hear that I'm doubting anything. It's just, again, with my experience, if either it's a fixed price, then we know what it's going to be, what's going to be billed, or if it's time and material, then it really shouldn't usually not, reach that point where it gets maxed out. If it gets maxed out every single time, that means that it was really calculated in the end as a kind of a fixed price approach, right?
Yeah.
And then it's just not transparent anymore. Until later, questions are going to be asked about it, and I want to make sure we don't ever get there. I want to be prepared before that.
Well, like I said, anything you need from us, we will share it.
Great. I know it's gonna be good for me just to track where we're at and how much is remaining, and, you know, if we see something out of balance, we'll be able to kind of catch on to it a little earlier, that's all.
I'll just add one thing to that is, the state contracts, when you're going through the SRF and that type of thing, they require you to have, time and expense not to exceed. So compared to doing lump sum, so if we're using a state contract form, that's how it's written, so we really you can't do a lump sum.
I would just, Peter, I think that's more wastewater, right?
But always, well, that's the contract same on that one.
Yeah, I mean, we're not using any state contracts on this job, so.
Was it the SRF part of it that
No, we're just using ESRs because the drinking water drinking water
oh,
doesn't
yeah,
give it up to
yeah.
So I mean, I think you guys are right to look at this, and I think that state requirement Peter's talking about is wastewater related, and you guys aren't in the wastewater business yet. So,
I'm not gonna say that.
yeah. So I don't think that requirement would fall to you.
Yeah, and again, I want to be clear. I'm not doing this because I have any concerns about we're being billed by you guys. I feel by no way taken advantage of. It's just, I think, good precaution.
And I'll second that.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. All right. If anybody else has any questions, then we'll hear them now. Otherwise, we'll probably move on to the minutes.
Do you have anything else for Underwood? Did you need us to stick around?
I don't think so. I got an update from Jamie by email. I know he's not participating today, so I think that's probably all I need to read. I don't know if you have anything that any new information from him more recently or anything, but other than that.
No, now that this ESR 50 is authorized, we will definitely be reaching out to him now, but I don't have anything new to report.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Keith and Pete?
I'm good.
If not, I guess you guys can go back to your quarantine.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks for joining.
Yep, you bet. Bye-bye.
Okay, great. So we'll move along with the minutes now. We have in front of us the minutes from March 26th, 2020. And that was an electronic meeting as well. I don't have any comments myself. If anybody has any questions or suggested edits on these, you can go ahead and bring them forth. You have something? Go ahead.
One minor one, which I think is just a typo. On the first page, line 44, I'm assuming that's supposed to say that there was no iron and manganese facility going in instead of not, right?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
That was the only thing.
Yeah, there
As
was.
usual, that was the only thing I could find. The rest was spot on.
One extra letter T.
I don't even know what day it is anymore, so that's good. I can't complain about that.
We're all the same now.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any suggested edits or comments or questions on the minutes? Seeing none, then if anybody wants to entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion made by Wolf, seconded by Ken. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and then we'll do a roll call.
Aye.
Okay, so Wolf, you made the motion. How you want to indicate roll call?
In favor.
In favor. Wolf's in favor. Ken Ayers, you seconded it. What's your
Aye.
Ken's in favor, and I'm in favor too, so that's 3-0 in favor of approving the minutes. All right, so, let's see. So we had a, action item here, next item number 4 is Board of Commissioners to review action items to be recorded in the minutes of this meeting. I think I identified one for Underwood to follow up on with the carbon media. What else did we have? Anything else to follow up on from anybody that we might want to just have put as an item in the minutes that we're following up on? Must be something, I can't remember anything specifically, but.
I'm sorry, I missed if you just mentioned that when you talked about carbon media. Are we talking about the mix of vessel and media manufacturers? And
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was Underwood was going to be tasked with looking into that, basically.
The other one was, Amanda wrote it down in the second one after that.
The SCADA.
That's right. Radio technology versus some more future-proof, possibly more future-proof technology.
Yeah, good call. Forgot about that one. Anybody else have any action items that they want listed from today's meeting? Then we'll just proceed with those. All right, so we'll move on to, let's see. There was one that I was going to bring up under old business, another action item. So I guess if we can just go into old business. The one thing I wanted to follow up on was, I don't remember if I asked Jamie to do this or not, but you know how he is, Emery and Garrett is graphing the water quality information on all our wells. I wasn't sure if he was aware that I was asking if he can also graph the water quality, particularly just the PFOA and PFOS for the Pennachuck system that feeds our interconnection booster pump. I think that water quality is represented on the DES website as the Pennachuck treatment plant, maybe, or something. But my point was to have Jamie figure out what the water quality would be, or what it has been from historic sampling in Nashua's Pennachuck system that would represent the water that we would be drawing from our interconnection booster system. And the reason I'm asking that is it would be good to know, you know, once all of our wells are treated in a couple of years, it would be good to know if we do need to use that Pennachuck connection, what we can expect the water quality to be in terms of PFAS. I don't know if Pennachuck is treating down to non-detect. I know they're using surface water from Merrimack. I believe they might intermittently be using surface water from Witches Brook too. And I don't know if they're treating all of that or not, but it would be good to look at what the history has been. I believe they're sampling on a monthly basis. So if someone can maybe follow up with Jamie on that and just see if he can go back and reproduce those graphs as if this was like a source for us. And it may very well be, if we can't find clean sources in town that don't need iron and manganese treatment, we're trying to put a price per gallon on all of our different options. I would like to put a price per gallon on this Pennachuck option as being potentially a supplemental source to replace that well 3 if we can't proceed with well 3. But I'd like to know what the water quality is on that, because if it's got some elevated PFAS, then we might have to consider whether we might want to use that or not as a source for a long-term source. So with all that being said, if you can follow up with Jamie on that, And if you want to make that action item number 3 on the minutes, Amanda, I'd appreciate it. So any other old business by anybody else that they want to bring up?
Don, just kind of going with what you're saying about the Pennachuck extension. I mean, it'd be kind of good to know also, because say where wells, 4 and 5, we were hoping to have up and running in July. If it comes to a situation where we need to use the Pennachuck, kind of be a good idea to have an idea of the PFOA situation with that, where we have to use it this summer in case of an emergency.
Right, and I'd like to know what the history's been there too. If they switch to the Merrimack River, maybe we're going to see that there's a drop in the PFOA concentration in that system. Because I think Witches Brook was a lot higher than, not Pennachuck Brook, which is fed by Witches Brook. So I think that water source was a lot higher in when they switched to the Merrimack River. I would expect to see that there was a corresponding drop in the PFAS levels in their finished drinking water. So it'd be good to just kind of look back and see if that was the case too. So other than that, I guess we can move on. If there's no other old business anybody has, we could probably move on to new business. Anybody have any new business to bring up?
Nope.
Okay. So the only new business that I was going to just discuss was Jamie Emery from Emery and Garrett provided us with an email, and that was all in our information packet. And maybe I'll just go through. I'm not going to read all of it in detail, but just to kind of update everybody here on what Jamie's doing is he said he's making good progress on the geophysical work, and that's in the Natticook Brook corridor that they're trying to find if there's any potential for new well locations there. Looks like you guys secured permission, and they were out there doing some field work out there. I spoke to Jamie just, I think it was on Friday, he called me. So I believe they are next will be compiling that geophysical information and presenting that to us. And then based on that, if it's feasible for us to move forward with drilling some test wells out there, that would be the next step. So I think he wants to, he definitely wants to schedule some time in our next May meeting to update us on that issue. And then he also said drilling a well 4 is ongoing, and that's proceeding. And Pete kind of talked about that. They're looking at selecting a well screen for that. He says the drilling is scheduled to resume the week of May 11th, and I believe that's for the permanent production well. And then he says he's submitting a pump test plan to the DES. So the DES, I believe, needs to approve that pump test procedure before we actually conduct the pump test on that well. Then item number 3 on his email was that he had indicated that he had pumped well 6, and he had sampled for PFAS, and he's going to be submitting a report to Ron and Jill on that around April 24th. And then lastly, he said that he would be submitting this week, I think, the annual monitoring report for the production wells. So if you haven't seen that, then he's probably going to be sending that in to you guys. So he's requesting about 30 or 40 minutes for the next commissioners meeting. So that's fine. I told him I'm happy with that. If you guys want to just get back to him and confirm that he's going to be on the agenda for the May meeting. Do you have any other questions on that at all? Okay. Any other new business items?
I did want to point out that the article that was written by Mike Metcalf and in your board packets, for anybody that would like to read about this article done by our engineers, MVD's PFAS Journey, Chapter 1. That's actually been put up on the website.
Good. Good. And then
would this be something that we want to maybe share in the newsletter? Something that this was, like I wouldn't call it the brief synopsis because it's not necessarily brief, but it actually reads typical Mike, rather easy. So this could be something that the public might be interested in to understand the whole ordeal that we're going through here.
Sorry, I missed the first part of that, Wolf. What did you want to?
Are we planning to broadcast this summary?
It was just put in with a PFAS information on the website, and it was also this was in the New Hampshire Water Works their monthly or quarterly journal. It just came out last week.
Okay.
so are you asking maybe if we want to put something on the Facebook feed or?
Yeah, I guess this is one of those things we could do. I'm not sure if we should be doing them, right? Those people that have an interest in the subject probably are aware of it at this point, and we're talking about it in every single meeting. So is this something that we want to broadcast? I'm not sure.
Well,
I would probably say yes.
Yeah, I would think it, because it's a nice, quick, easy read, and it kind of summarizes
Right.
how we got to where we are. It might be. I don't think people would really know that information exists.
Right.
Whoever's watching this meeting right now, maybe that's something we can just push out on the Facebook page. If you guys feel that that's an easy thing to do, or
We'll get it out.
okay. Well, yeah. So that was it brings up the other Facebook thing we wanted to do is the just posting a picture of something well 4 and 5 update with the vessels in place. So maybe if you want to add another action item, just to say that we're gonna do Facebook notices of wells 4 and 5, picture of the new vessels installed, and the article by Underwood. All right, and I just wanted to update any of our customers that are watching that we are now targeting the annual meeting for May 26th. As of right now, we're still planning on it being at the middle school at, I believe, 7 p.m. on May 26th, and that's, I believe, the day after Memorial Day. That's a Tuesday, May 26th. And that absentee ballots are available, and those can be obtained by mail by calling Jill at the MVD office at 424-9241, extension 103. And those can be mailed out, and then they have to be filled out and returned by mail or dropped off in the drop box prior to the annual meeting. It's all posted on our MVD's website if you want more information. It's right on the front page. Anybody can just go look there for the annual meeting update. So that was a good job. Thanks for getting that out. I think other than that, I don't have any. I don't have really any other questions about or any other new business, other than just what's the count of you have a consensus of how many absentee ballots that have been received yet? Is there a lot coming in, or
30 have gone out. I didn't count how many.
30? Okay, good. All right, that's all.
Maybe a quick comment on that for anybody that's watching. We have multiple selected positions that need to be filled at the annual meeting this year. And we really would appreciate voters to go out and make themselves heard and make sure these positions are actually voted in place and not just going in by default. So, come in numbers, vote in numbers, please. Thank you.
And actually, just to continue on that note, I know the governor issued some kind of directive that he's going to allow absentee ballots to be used in place of going to the primaries that we have in September and then the general election in November, that he's allowing for people who are concerned about going to public events like voting in public, that absentee ballots are acceptable to be used in those elections in September and November. I don't think he specifically said anything about town elections in May, but obviously if he's allowing absentee ballots to be used as far out as September and November because of concerns about COVID exposure in public, I would assume that that also applies to our town meeting and MVD annual meeting that's happening next month. So for any of our customers that were concerned about filling out an absentee ballot, it seems that that's an appropriate reason, is for the concern about being in a public place with the COVID-19 issue. So I just wanted to present that. Do we have anything else? We can do it, hear it now. Otherwise, we can move on to the superintendent's report.
Yeah, I just got a couple things done. Our annual report is completed and it's actually posted on the website, as well as the CCR, which just completed as well. That's going to go out. We're getting ready to do a postcard. Postcard's going out tomorrow, letting the residents know that it's a bulk mailing to everybody, letting them know that CCR is available online.
And that's the consumer confidence report, right? Which is kind of talks about water quality and stuff.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's all I have on that. I know you did want me to mention what the operations here with the COVID-19. We're still pretty much business as usual, other than the office is closed down. Hence the meeting, online meeting here we've been doing. Payments can be made online or by check, dropped in the drop box. We do have 3 of our personnel, office staff, working from home remotely, answering phone calls, and so it's really been business as usual here. A couple hiccups here and there as far, something's froze up on a screen and we have to go around, shake a mouse around for somebody. But other than that,
Ron, which of the 3 positions are working remotely?
Finance, customer service, and the say it again? Office assistant. I'm going to say finance assistant. Office assistant is from home. Coming in as needed. So Mondays, like Michelle was here today, she's usually in on Mondays because of payroll. Other than that, she's working from home.
Yeah. And our approval of the pay requisitions from the commissioners has been going okay with you guys through email, right?
Yes.
Seems to be working for us. So, okay.
Well, it's actually been working well with a minor hiccups here and there. Other than that, it's been going good.
Good. Okay. I guess if there's anything else to present, or are you good with your superintendent's report? Okay. The next item here is questions from the public, and I did mention at the beginning of the meeting here that there's a phone number you can call in. And I'll say that again here at 1-646-876-9923. That I guess gets you into this meeting. I'm not sure if we have anybody on the line anywhere that has any questions from the public right now or not, or who's actually monitoring that.
I've been actually monitoring. So we have no participants that have dialed in. We have Kathy Kumar thanking you to have the PFAS story published, broadcast. And we had one question, why we are not sitting 6 feet apart. And I'm assuming that goes for the people in the MVD office. two of which, of course, are working daily with each other, so they're essential workers. So it really doesn't do anybody any good to separate themselves. Ken, next time we have to probably put you on the other side of the projector or something like that.
We'll have to get a widescreen camera or something.
That's right. But yeah, no, those were the only comments that were made.
Okay, I know we have an item on here for the agenda, questions from the press, but obviously I don't think there's any press present, and there's nothing online from the press. So I'll assume that there are no questions from the press at this time. And if anybody else has any final statements, otherwise we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Before we do that, I want to mention that the next meeting is on May 18th, 2020. And we're not sure if that's going to be in person or virtual, but one way or the other, it'll be on the website. So is it nothing else?
I would like to thank Merrimack TV. I think this is a great platform for the time that we're in. And I think people are going to appreciate it, that they have a chance to see this. So thank you very much for this.
And we know they're doing this as a courtesy, so I agree with you. And I want to thank them for offering this to us.
And I really want to thank the staff too, MVD staff. You guys have been adjusting very fast to these requirements, and it's not easy. It's not easy at all. So thank you for getting this organized together with Merrimack TV and just in general. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Okay, motion made by myself. Second by Ken. We'll do roll call. I'll vote in favor. Don Provencher. Ken, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes to adjourn. Wolf?
In favor.
Votes in favor. It's 3-0-0 to adjourn. Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Stay safe.